got some drywall patchwork going on. It's not super bad, but just bad enough to need some repairing, some mudding, and some patch. So I'm gonna get rid of all the high spots first. Put a little light on, make a little noise. Let's put down. I'm gonna take off these bumps first. It's gonna really make the wheel not smooth. I kind of don't want to get too crazy with it because it just isn't really gonna make or break anything here. But take down the high spots that I can. Which isn't much here. On this one, I'm just going to be trying to make it better. Perfection is long gone. Just going to try to make it better. Alright. What I have is some quick mix mud. This is 2 parts powder, 1 part water. So we're going to mix that up. Make it nice and smooth. Add my water in. Add my water there. Just mixing the powder in. You only want to mix up as much as you use within 20 minutes. This is a 20-minute mud. The mud pan makes it a little bit easier because it's got a couple knives on the side for scraping off the knife as you work with it. You want it to kind of cling to the blade and not have any runs in it. It's still a little too runny. It'll start to solidify as it mixes with the powder. It's still a little more watery than I'd like it to be at this point. Just kind of keep mixing it up until I can get it right. Almost there. You can kind of mix it up to the consistency you like, depending on what you're working on. And for ceilings, you probably want it a little thicker. And for walls, you might get away with a little bit thinner. So since my mud is a little bit thin, I'll start with the walls first and then work my way to the ceilings. That way as it gets a little firmer, then I can go ahead and move along the ceiling. Since I've got a bigger area, I've got a larger drywall knife here. Ideally, I'll get just a nice smooth surface first and take the texture. That's kind of my goal here at this point. The smoother I can get it, the nicer and the more uniform I'll be able to put the texture on. Again, this isn't probably not going to be perfect here. But it should be nice. Top, that seems to be working out pretty good. Critical part will be when we add the texture and go to knock it down. And because of the situation on this one, I'm probably not going to knock it down quite as much as I normally would. Because this is just kind of a tricky deal here. Trying to balance this out, make it kind of smooth. And I need to save enough for the ceiling there. Fix that up. On this one, the ceiling will be fairly easy. Fairly easy. Should work. Sometimes none of this is easy. That's alright. Majority of this worked out with a knife, and then the finish, once it gets closer to it being dry, I'll just smooth out with a wet sponge. Again, the smoother we can get it, the better, because the better it will function with our texture. When you go to not getting the texture, if you've got a nice smooth surface to work with, it'll allow the nice even knockdown of the texture. Although there's a few tricks with working with the texture we'll get into. We'll get to that. Again, just kind of trying to even this all out here. I think it's going to work. We're not really going to give it a choice. We're just going to make it. Because it is what it is. point. Just get some of this stuff to come down a little bit. When working with the knife, with the drywall knife, is what's called walking, where one point's kind of dragging and leaving marks in the texture. Kind of easy to do, especially if you push too hard. If you just kind of push lightly, it's better, but if it walks, it'll leave these jagged lines. I'll show you. I'll push kind of hard. And you see how it kind of left these lines here. We don't want that. So it's a little bit better to just go over it nice and lightly. And sometimes you got to reposition the mud back on the end of your knife. Bring it on in. Just kind of patchwork here, a little small. small area. Get a little bit out with a small knife. The rest of that I'll smooth out with a sponge once it starts to. Okay, so now you can see my texture is barely starting to dry here around the edges. And so just around the edges, I don't want any high spots there, so I'm going to use just my sponge. I got it a little wet, and just around the edges I'm going to feather that in, drag it over, just like so. It's going to make it blend and really going to hide that outer edge. That's the most critical spot here. It really shows up when you're doing drywall work where you have a hard edge or an edge that ends bluntly. What we can do is kind of stagger where that edge ends instead and basically make that edge disappear, because that edge is going to show up in our paint. We don't want that. So anyway, there it is. Taking that edge off. Taking the edge down. There we go. I don't really want to go into my main mud yet. It's not dry. But just again, around the edges, just going to take out that hard line edge. And that's just going to make everything float in. Now, using the sponge is a lot easier than using sandpaper. You won't have to breathe all that sand in from the drywall. And I just find it makes a better finish. So, maybe it just brings out the artist in you. Just kind of trust your gut on it, your feeling as you're working with it. Lightly work it in. Just to make things better. Now I'm just kind of getting rid of any of the high lines or any really differences. And I'm not pressing in, I'm just lightly going over. Just lightly going over the mud. The rest of that we'll really get with the texture. I don't want to leave lines in the drywall, but anyway, back to the edges. This area has more edges. And so we're just smooth out those edges and make much less of a transition there. Okay. There we go. That'll work. Okay, and the back wall is all pretty consistent. Any of the really high lines I can bring down. I may have to wait for it to dry a little bit more, so I don't want to leave any lines or make any new lines in there. But I can start to drag out what needs to be dragged out. And just gotta have a feel for it. If it's making it worse, it may be too early. If it's leaving lines, if that's kind of leaving lines in there, I don't really want to do that. I do want to get rid of any really trouble spots. It's pretty good. In a pinch, if you're really good at it, you can sponge in your texture and actually make it blend, but not that easy. I'll probably really need to let it dry. I'll try and rinse off my sponge. Save it for tomorrow. The rest is the texturing. Which, you know, you can almost get away with. Almost get away with not texturing at this point. Because it looks a lot more uniform. Alright, here we go. Alright, so there it is. One more shot as it dries. And the question is, does it need texture?